As will be the theme for much of this series, today's topic likely was omitted from curriculums because it is uncomfortable truth. Today's topic is the Tulsa Massacre. Most of you probably don't know about this topic, or you found out about it watching Watchmen on HBO. I was astonished to find out this was a true historical event after watching the series, and this realization was my inflection point into diving deeper into history. So let's give a little background first. Oklahoma became a state in 1907. The first laws that were passed were Jim Crow laws. These were the first laws passed because those in power at the time felt the state constitution that included Jim Crow laws would not be ratified by Congress. World War I black veterans returned home to the oppression of Jim Crow laws and demanded civil rights laws be enforced. All this is occurring with the rise of the Ku Klux Klan due to the 1915 movie Birth of a Nation. This movie depicts black people in racist stereotypes and depicts the KKK as the heroes. As in most of the South, racial tensions reached boiling points and lynchings were not uncommon. In 1916, Tulsa passed an ordinance forbidding members of a race from living in a neighborhood with 75% of residents of a different race. This law was ruled unconstitutional a year later by the Supreme Court. Tulsa became prosperous amidst the oil boom. Greenwood was a district located within Tulsa and contained a large number of affluent, educated, and professional black residents. This prosperous area was known as Black Wall Street. Let me set the scene. May 30th, 1921, Memorial Day. A black 19-year-old shoe shiner, Dick Rowland, is working for the day. Most people are off for the holiday, but the shop is open to make some money on patrons attending the parade. Rowland is forced to use the restroom on the top floor because of segregation laws. A 17-year-old white girl named Sarah Page was the elevator's attendant. It's speculated the two of them were aware of one another since they worked in the same building, and Rowland would have to use the elevator to use the bathroom. A girl's scream was heard, and another shop worker went to help and witnessed a young black man fleeing the building. Assuming she was sexually assaulted, the worker called authorities due to Miss Page being visibly distraught. Rowland ended up running to his mother's house out of fear and protection because of all the lynchings that had occurred throughout the South during this period of time. Police did a brief investigation but found nothing more than a grab of her arm occurred, not amounting to an assault. Police detained him the next morning on May 31st, 1921. A white-owned newspaper hyperbolized the incident. After the publication, rumors flew about the town. A white mob descended on the courthouse and demanded the sheriff hand over Rowland. Black residents gathered to figure out how to protect Rowland, including World War I veterans. They offered the sheriff help, but the sheriff denied it. The National Guard armory was a target for the mob, however, the commanding officer was notified and posted sentries in the armory. The National Guardsman informed the mob he gave orders to his subordinates to shoot anyone trying to force their way into the armory. There were conflicting reports on exactly how the violence started. Just before midnight, it is said the white mob attempted to disarm a black man and shots were fired to defend themselves. 12 dead, 10 white and 2 black. Another report claims a lone black man was attacked by a group of 6 white men in front of black-owned shops. Shop owners came out to defend the man, and shots were fired to defend themselves. Regardless of how it started, the white mob descended onto Greenwood. Black-owned shops were broken into and looted, searching for weapons and ammunition. Parts of the white mob were seen driving down the streets and firing guns blindly. Gunfights between black and white citizens flared up throughout the night. A passing train was caught in the crossfire, forcing passengers to take cover. The white mob harassed middle-class white families housing and employing black servants. The mob wanted them turned over. Most complied. Those who didn't were attacked and or vandalized. Police deputized parts of the mob, telling them to get a gun and kill a black person using far more colorful and racist language. Eventually, the mob began lighting the business district on fire. Reports suggest the fire department was turned away at gunpoint. Notice the fire department tried helping, while the police department escalated the violence, deputizing the white mob. Daybreak saw an escalation of the violence after a shrill of a train whistle, which some believe was a signal. The mob broke into black-owned homes and businesses, still remaining from the night before. Planes were seen dropping flaming turpentine and firing shots. This is the first time Americans experienced aerial assault, and it was citizen-on-citizen violence. The governor ordered the National Guard to quell the violence. Guardsmen arrived from other Oklahoman cities around 9 a.m. and took a break for breakfast. Reports claim the National Guard was protecting white-owned businesses adjacent to Greenwood. Martial law was declared at 11:49 a.m., and most of the violence was suppressed by noon. After a little over 12 hours, the violence finally ended. The aftermath saw all major national outlets with varying casualty numbers reported. No deaths were reportedly caused by the fires. The Red Cross was mostly relied on for the reconstruction. 10,000 people were left homeless, and $1.8 million in property damage, roughly $30 million equivalent to today's money, were claimed against the city. 150 to 300 dead, and 800 seriously injured. Luckily, the Jewish community in Tulsa saved black people during the riot, or those numbers could be far higher. In 1996, a commission was approved to produce a report detailing a historic account for the event. Both parties strongly supported the commission. The report was eventually released February 28, 2001, with the following recommendations: a direct payment of reparations to the survivors, direct payment to the descendants of the survivors, scholarships for students affected by the riots, establish economic development zone in the Greenwood district, and a memorial for the reburial of the remains of victims. On June 1st, 2001, the Tulsa Race Riot Reconciliation Act was passed. This legislation fell significantly short of the Commission's recommendations, particularly the reparations for the survivors. The state legislation felt it was inappropriate for reparations. It's hard to believe a Southern legislation did not take accountability for its history and make things right. The legislation provided 300 scholarships for descendants of the survivors, an economic development zone for the Greenwood district, and a memorial for the victims. In regards to Dick Rowland, the start of all this, historians believe he escaped Tulsa. Reports suggest the sheriff took him to Kansas City, potentially secretly, returning in the fall of 1921. The case was dropped September 1921 after the county attorney received a letter from Sarah Page requesting to not prosecute the case. Some records say Page and Rowland saw each other in Kansas in 1967. This was not an all-encompassing dive into the Tulsa Massacre, but I hope I have provided enough for your general knowledge. Although painful to recount this dark piece of history, it is important to be aware of our past. This provides context to the points later down the road, such as the passage of the Civil Rights Acts in the 1960s and the protests and unrest leading up to that point. I've included a link to the Tulsa Race Riot Commission report in the description below. I've also included a few publications for further reading. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell.